This video is to demonstrate how to enter electronic claim forms using the CMS 1500 format in SimChart for the medical record or medical office. You will enter into your SimChart EHR. Because entering claim forms and completing claim forms is a coding and billing transaction, you will need to click on the Coding and Billing module tab at the top. It should be highlighted in blue. Under your info panel, you will need to make sure that you scroll down and click on the actual claim to open up your patient database for selecting the appropriate patients to enter claims for the patient. If you have not completed the super bills and coded and posted out your fees and procedure codes to your super bill and your ledger, then you will not have or may not have the appropriate claim form to complete and available, because the claim forms are completed based off your super bill and encounters that have been charged or documented within the patient's medical record. So once you've clicked on claim under the coding and billing section of your practice management system in SimChart, you will select your appropriate patient using the search box, or you can scroll through your patient database. I'm going to be using my test 2 patient. Select the radio button, verify the date of birth, and the appropriate information is for the exact patient that you are wanting to enter a claim on. Click select. This particular patient only has one encounter that has been submitted and ready to have a claim performed. So if you have entered, and I'm going to step back just so you can see the difference. If I go to my super bills, notice this is for patient 2. I want to see all of my encounters. Notice he has multiple encounters out there. However, there is only one dated for October 26th that has been submitted and is ready to be issued to the insurance company and have a CMS 1500 or HCFA form completed and to be sent to our clearinghouse to be run through what is called a scrub program, or dropped to paper to be mailed in, depending on the insurance carrier and their method as to whether or not they will be filed electronically. But either way, we must have an encounter that has been completely submitted. Click on claim. Because I was already in and had selected my patient from the super bill and went straight to claim, it automatically pulled my test 2 patient. If I was working on another patient and came to claim, make sure that it is truly opening the patient that you are wanting to submit that claim for. All right, so once we have confirmed we do have the appropriate patient, if we do not, you click Change Patient. Go back to your database, select the appropriate patient, and make sure that your encounter that has the appropriate date of service is showing and available for you to generate a claim. Notice I do not have a claim date because I have not created this claim. This will be the date that this claim has been entered and completed or generated. Notice my status says not started. We do not have anything in the output at this time. So the only thing you can do or click on would be action. So we will click on the little pencil and note paper. Notice if you hover over it, it gives you the edit option. This is our edit button. So we're going to go in. We're wanting to edit and confirm that what we have entered both demographically on each of the portions of our CMS 1500 form or in our demographics is rolling over and populating correctly in the electronic CMS 1500 form. Now this form at this point in SimChart will not look like the red and white printed CMS 1500 form at this time. We're simply filling in the blanks that are appropriate that would line up once we drop it to paper. So let's click on Action. You'll notice there's several tabs across the top. You have to enter or confirm the information on each one of these tabs is accurate and hit Save after each one of these tabs has been entered and confirmed. Notice at this point my submit claim is not available. It is grayed out and I cannot submit this claim as it is. Across the top, you will see the fee schedule. So if you need to pull that information back up, you can do so. You can view the place of service. There is a numeric code that you will find or should have found in your textbook reading. This gives you a list of the place of service. It's a numeric code that if it was a pharmacy, whoever is billing for these services, the location or place that service was provided is the numeric code that you would need to populate and fill in. Notice here's ours that says this was in the office. If it was a group home, assisted living, if it was hospice. So this is where in our lectures, this will be more specific. You also have, I was looking for hospital, outpatient hospital. You would enter this place of service. So you may want to keep that up. Traditionally, the number one, the two most often that we will be billing from our ambulatory outpatient services, that is what a CMS 1500 form is used for, is traditionally an 11 or a 22, that is outpatient hospital. However, if your doctor does go to urgent cares or skilled nursing facilities and we are doing billing for those places of service, then we may very well have to use these additional place of service codes in the CMS form that we are completing. So notice we already have patient information populated. This is pulling from our demographic screen that we entered in, our emergency contact. So any information, if it has a red asterisk, has to be completed in order to move forward. If there's any additional information that we want to plug in, we can at this time for the claim. If nothing needs to be changed, and this is indeed the correct patient, then you can click Save. You have a green successful save bar, and now you're ready to move on to provider info. This is going to be the service facility location. Where was the facility located? This is physical location. This is your box 32 on your paper claim. We have the name of our facility. So this is Walden Martin Clinic. Their address, notice it pre-populated for you. The box that you would need to fill in and have this information readily available before you start. However, we've not submitted, so if I need to save and come back at a later date, I can do so to finish filling that in. So the billing provider is if the provider that is billing, who's going to get this check. So it may be coming to the same physical address, or this may be if they provided the service at the outpatient hospital location, then we may have that facility location entered here for the hospital, and then I would need to plug in this particular case, I'm going to use Dr. Larson. Her organization name was, I'm just making up something. You would need to pull this information off of the letterhead or your clinic information, but this is the billing provider. Who is that check going to come payable to? Who is going to report this revenue and this income to the IRS? So this is traditionally where your billing provider billing provider, what provider is billing for this service. So definitely want to give them a phone number. Notice it already has populated the NPI number. This is actually the NPI number for Walden Clinic. So you cannot change this. This is based on the information when we plugged in the provider for your demographics. That's where that information is pulling from. We would want to put in her address. So I'm just making up information here in case you can't tell. We hit save, and you just continue moving through each one of your tabs. Now, when you get to this one, don't panic. Remember, this is just like on our ledger. Do your drop down arrow. This should pre-populate whatever primary insurance that you entered in the patient's demographics, as well as any secondary information. You have a place on here, remember our prior authorizations. If you received a prior authorization number, then you would need to enter this here. So I just entered whatever your insurance company may have given you. Notice you have one if say your primary did not need it, but your secondary did. Just make sure you plug it in under the appropriate insurance. If they don't have a secondary, then this will be blank by default. No dental insurance was entered, so notice that's blank. It does allow you that if I need to plug in another insurance, notice I can still add insurance information at this time, even if it's not been entered in the demographics. If it's in the demographics, it will auto-populate this information for you. But you want to, because see, that's why these are grayed out. These were entered in the demographics. I cannot alter those. I can add an authorization number, however. And so you just kind of scroll down, double check each one of these sections that if the information, if there's supposed to be information, is it there? If I need to add it, did I add it? Insured information, this is the policy holder that holds that insurance, shows their employer name and their school name. Whatever was entered in demographics is right here. All right, so from here, we want to make sure we hit save. And then we're going to go to our encounter notes. There we go. On this, ultimately, you're just confirming the grayed out information. Is there any information that has been entered? If we have lab orders, you would add them here. Traditionally, you would not. Radiology orders, you would click and add those in here. Most of our exercises should leave these blank. However, what you don't want to leave blank is your encounter data. You want to come in and make sure you put down your encounter data. Your HIPAA form. Do you have a HIPAA form on file? You should answer yes to this because we should not be filing a CMS form if we do not have the appropriate paperwork that we discussed in MED 130 such as our HIPAA form, giving us authorization to submit claims for that patient, stating that they've given us the insurance information to file and that we're going to accept assignment, meaning that whatever is allowed, we're going to accept it, and assignment of benefits, saying that the patient is going to have the payments sent directly to us instead of collecting from the patient and the patient being reimbursed. So if we're filing this claim, you should have this information on file. So you're going to click yes. You're going to click the date. This date should be the date that you're completing this CMS form, stating that you have verified as of this day that you do indeed have a HIPAA form on file. You have your provider's name. This is the provider that was listed when the encounter form was, or super bill was generated. We have our diagnosis that we entered in rank box 1 on our super bill, showing here if you have multiples. Notice this is rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so as those diagnoses that you entered would be listed right here in the order that you entered them on their super bill. Here's our signature of provider. They've listed their federal tax ID number. Now, one thing that you have to remember in this particular case, you want to click on here, drag over and highlight it, and you want to hit Control C for copy. Control C on your keyboard. You can right click and hit copy if you need to, because you have to tell me whether this is a social security number or an employer identification number. Remember EIN that we talked about at the beginning of the semester with our insurance identifiers. Part of that HIPAA security rules was your EIN. We should be entering EIN numbers. Notice as soon as I click that, what happened to that number? So if you have indeed copied, then you should be able to right click and hit paste, or you can hit Control V as in Victor, and it will plug that number right back in, but you have to tell me that it is the EIN, Employer Identification Number. Now, EPSD is what we had talked about briefly with our Medicaid insurance. This is a early preventative screening and diagnostic testing. This is for Medicaid patients only. So you can click yes or you can click no. This patient did not have Medicaid, so it is best to go ahead and click no, because I do not want you leaving anything blank on our SIM chart. When you do your manual, then you have a better option and to just leave blank, or you can put an N for no or a Y for yes. You will click save. Now this information has been saved. You will go to claim information. This is where we're wanting to know, and this was information that you did enter on your super bill, but they're asking for you to do this again. You have appropriate boxes if you were to compare this side by side. These same questions are asked throughout your paper CMS form. And so you do need to address each one of these. Is this condition related to employment? No. Auto? No. This should match what you entered on your super bill when you were doing these questions then. If there was any accidents, then you would finish filling this information in. There's not any, so you leave it blank. Date of illness or injury. This is box 14 on your claim form. You have to put at least the date of that particular visit. So in this particular case, it was October, the date of illness or injury. It was October 26th. Notice it will not let you go and click on any of these dates. So it has to be current or a previous date of injury or illness. In this particular case, it was October 26th of 2018. If there's any other similar illnesses, you would put these in here, such as pregnancies. If you have a patient that's going through multiple staged procedures, then you may have to enter this information as well. If there's not any, then you can leave it blank. Is the patient able to work? If they are, then you click yes. If they're not, then you would do no, and you would give me the date ranges. So you would have to fill in both of these if you put the patient is unable to work. Is the patient unable to work? Be careful with this, because is the patient unable to work? Yes, they're unable to work. If it's just for a cold or whatever, then no, this does not apply to the patient. So make sure you read that correctly so that you answer it appropriately. Hospitalization, this only has to be filled in if this patient in this claim is because the patient has been hospitalized. If you're billing for hospital services, or when the doctor saw the patient in the hospital and he's billing for his services, then you would need to enter dates. If you do not have hospital procedure codes, then you absolutely would not have hospitalization dates entered. Is there any outside labs? This is getting down toward box 20 or 23, if I remember correctly, on your CMS form. Um, what they're wanting to know is, are we billing charges on this claim for labs that were performed at an outside lab? We should not, and traditionally will not, be billing for outside lab procedures that were performed, such as at LabCorp or Quest. These procedures, the lab themselves will bill for their own procedures and services that they performed on the blood or specimens that were sent over. So traditionally, our answer should be no. Do we have a release of information? That's our HIPAA form that says that yes, it's okay. That signature on file, yes. The date or release of that date, you're confirming that you have one on file as of today or a previous date. Traditionally, we just put down today's date, that stating that we have confirmed we have a release of information. We have that assignment of benefits. This is box 13 on your CMS form. Yes, we are accepting assignment, which means benefits will come to me. Is there a signature on file? Yes. This is box 12 and 13 on your CMS form. Name of referring physician. This is if you are filing a claim that the patient was referred from another provider and we have to have a special referring number, then we would want to enter that information here. If we do not have one, then you leave it blank. We click save and we're ready to go to the next tab. This is where we are down now in our box 24. And I think it's A through F or something like that, down toward the bottom of your not super bill, your CMS 1500 form. So this is the date of service to and from. You have to enter something in both. Notice you only have an asterisk in the date of service from. If you only enter it in here, so if we were October 26th, 2018, if I do not put anything in here, then it will be assumed that this is the same for both. I am requiring you to put the same date, to duplicate it, even if they are the same in both. If this was a hospital visit and it overlapped from one day to the next, then you would want to make sure that you showed that appropriately. So if we came in on the 26th, but we were not discharged until the 30th, then that's where you would change this to the appropriate day, and it's from such and such date to this following date, and that would affect our quantity of those hospital visits, but we'll look at that specifically at coding. For this particular example, just make sure that you know to enter to and from dates. If they're the same and it's only within a 24-hour period, you just enter the date twice. If it's over multiple days, then for that one single procedure, because notice each procedure has its own line. We go to our CPT, our procedures, and HCPCS codes. There is an asterisk. You have to give me one. This is where we would put those office visits, those micro UAs, those procedure codes that we pulled off of that fee schedule. You would pull those and you would just enter those in appropriately for each one. Only one procedure per line. This is that place of service where I told you would have to view it. If this is an office visit, then my place of service is going to be number 11. So under place of service, POS, you enter number 11. Diagnosis, this is where in your true manual system, you would enter what's called a diagnosis pointer. This particular system varies just a little bit, so we would actually re-enter. And I'm going to test this theory. You would either enter your diagnosis. In your paper chart, you will not rewrite the diagnosis. You will simply enter in the rank or what's called your diagnosis pointer. If you had multiple diagnoses that applied to this one visit, you do not put commas like this. Notice it does not even let me put commas at all. You simply would type in, if I had three diagnoses and all three were applicable and medically necessary for this procedure and supported this procedure, then I simply enter a space in between each one. If it was only my, so say number 1 was for that one. This is modifiers. If you have a modifier, you would enter that modifier in. You should not have any modifiers at this time. You would enter the appropriate fee from your fee schedule in your fee column. So for 70. Units, you have to give me something. You still want to use currency format under fee, but units, if it's one date, so see I've got only one day, one procedure, units would be 1. Notice it automatically populated your charge over here in the far column. If I had multiple procedures, then I come down, do the same thing. If I say this was you had to do 2 pregnancy tests for whatever reason, you should never have to do that, but if you did, and we're doing that 85, oops, whatever that code was. It's still done in the office, but say this was for hematuria and that was my diagnosis number 3 that I entered. Notice how I just put number 3. This is where those ranks come in from your super bill. Which diagnosis, that rank that it was entered, that's where you would enter it under this particular box. Which one? These are called diagnosis pointers. If I had a modifier, then you would enter the modifier. You should not have any, but see, you just enter that single modifier, whatever my charge was. What if I had to do it 2 times? And there was a quantity of 2, such as a medication. Then you just simply enter the fee. That's your single fee amount. But notice when I put my charge, number 2, notice over here, it totals up my charge. So 15 times 2 equals 30. You do not come over here and put 30. Because if I do, look what it says. It says my charge is now 60. So make sure that when you're entering the fee, this should be that singular fee off of that fee schedule, and let your quantity or your units determine and finish calculating out your total charges. So if that's all that I've got and all the procedures that was performed that day, If I need to add more rows, I can. But you'll do that for each procedure and service that was performed. It should tally up toward the end. If there was an amount paid traditionally to our primaries, we leave this blank unless we're billing to a secondary insurance carrier, and then we would put whatever that insurance carrier paid. If the patient paid a copay, you can enter it here, but notice it adjusts your balance due, and this can affect what your insurance companies pay. So traditional practice is we leave this amount paid as zero unless we're filing this claim to the secondary insurance, and I have to put in what the primary paid so they would know this has been paid. You hit save. Now I'm ready for my last tab at submission. It simply says, am I ready to submit this claim? Once you click yes, it's going to ask you, once again, is there a signature on file? Yes. What's the date of that signature? Minimum has to be today, or it can be a previous date, but it has to be at least this date. Traditionally, we just put today's date. Once we've done that, you still have to click save. And notice I still can't see my output yet. If I need to upload anything, I can. If I need to upload a copy of that signature, or if I have to upload a copy of that primary insurance payment, I can do that from this button here. You will not have any exercises like that. If everything is correct, and notice I can still toggle back through each one of these and double check my stuff. Once I am truly ready, though, I can click on Submit Claim. Once I have, you will see a green Submit Claim or Claim Has Been Submitted bar. Notice you have no more options to upload anything. If I go over here, notice everything's grayed out. I cannot double check it and click on it to change it. I can, however, view my output claim. So this should look very much like your CMS red and white form. However, there are some guideline rules. This particular EHR does not fill in and complete everything appropriately. We will discuss this in detail in class and address box by box guidelines. Notice, though, however, we would still need to put in our carrier information up here at the top. This is where we're mailing this claim to. So if it's going to Blue Cross, I would need to plug in Blue Cross Blue Shield and their claims address right here in the top in this little section that says carrier. That's what we would enter right here. Across here, you'll notice the violation of we've got check marks. That is not an allowed mark on your universal CMS forms. They should be X's. So this particular system does have difficulty letting us, it doesn't give you the option. So they've programmed it to do check marks. When you're doing your manual and handwritten CMS forms, you have to give me your X marks. Your patients and the information that you write in needs to be in all caps. You have commas between the last name and first name, but you do not need one between the first name and the middle initial, and you do not put a period after the middle initial. This particular form, you have 6-digit format for your date of birth. So you can see as you go down through, here's our employment and accident related injuries. Is there other health insurance benefits? If you put yes, notice it plugs in the name of that other insurance information. Here's our signature on file and the date that we entered and confirmed. Here's our assignment of benefits. And as we move down through, we will talk about, and you have very detailed information. One thing that is not on this particular form that is required on your manual forms and is required on the real world CMS form is this little box right here where you have to put a 0 for your indicating that this is an ICD-10. You had to click it on your super bill, but unfortunately it does not carry over on the electronic claim form. That's something we would have to fix. Also notice we do not have prior authorization, even though I entered that information. When we were entering our claim, it did not transfer that over to this CMS form. So that's just some of the broken issues with your electronic CMS form. You will still need to do them. However, just know that there are some more guidelines and requirements. Don't think you can go in and do your CMS form here and just copy it straight over to your handwritten CMS forms. You would need to finish filling in your appropriate boxes. Here's your quantities and that type information. Notice here under charges, it's put in the $30 instead of the $15. On your manual system, you would not do this because your insurance companies will look at this and say $30 times 2. So that is just a software program issue that we do have. That's why you will not do very many of these claim forms for your homework. For that simple fact, because it does not generate appropriate CMS forms. So your CMS forms, while you'll do a few electronic, most of them will be done on paper, just so that you can get more familiar and acquainted with the appropriate completion of the CMS form, because this CMS form would be denied for several different reasons, and we'll address those specifically in class. But you'll notice down the side columns, where would you find this information if you needed to make corrections? This is your patient and insured information. This is coming from our demographics. And then as you move down, this is physician or supplier information, and this is what we're going to get from our provider from that medical record, and the provider is going to sign off on this information. This concludes how to submit and complete your electronic claim forms inside SimChart for the medical office. Once you have completed this claim, you can go back to your list of super bills for your patient if you have additional claims that you need to enter. And you'll see we now have a status of submitted. We have a claim date, and you can come back in and view your output at any time and print it or save it as a PDF so that you can upload it to Blackboard as required according to your Blackboard assignments. Actions, once again, you can go into it. However, you're very limited on what you can change, if anything. Okay, so once again, that concludes our claim form completion and submission using SimChart for the medical office.